Hey everyone, this is Taehyung. When the news of my marriage came out, the world around me shifted overnight. I knew there would be reactions, but nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened. I've faced cameras my whole life. I've seen my name trending hundreds of times, but this time it was different. The headlines didn't sound like celebration, they sounded like betrayal. My own happiness had somehow turned into a scandal. That morning, when I woke up, I reached for my phone the way I always do. I scrolled through messages, comments, and mentions until my thumb started to tremble. The love was still there. I could see it, but it was buried beneath layers of confusion, anger, and heartbreak. Some people cried, others cursed, and many just couldn't believe it was real. I sat at the edge of my bed, trying to breathe through it. The sunlight coming through my window felt colder than usual. I remember whispering to myself, "You did nothing wrong, you just loved." But in that moment, love felt like a crime. My manager called and told me not to go outside. "There are reporters waiting," he said, "and some fans too." His voice shook in a way that scared me. Fans waiting outside used to be a normal thing. But that day, it didn't sound like excitement, it sounded like confrontation. I stayed inside for hours, but silence can be cruel. Every second stretched longer, every thought heavier. I finally decided to go out. I put on a mask, a hat, and a long coat as if I could hide from the world that once loved me so fiercely. The street felt unfamiliar. Cameras clicked even when I turned away. I could hear murmurs following me like shadows. Some people called my name softly. Others said things I wish I could unhear. It wasn't hatred, exactly, it was heartbreak turned into noise. People wanted answers, and I didn't have the strength to give them any. Later that afternoon, I went to meet a close friend for lunch. The cafe was quiet, tucked away in a corner of Seoul where I used to find peace. But peace was impossible that day. The moment I stepped in, the atmosphere changed. Conversation stopped. I could feel eyes tracking every move I made. I tried to act normal, smiled, ordered coffee, even joked a little, but inside I was collapsing. My friend reached across the table and said, "You can't control how people react, Tai. You just have to stay honest." But honesty comes with a price. I had been honest, I shared my truth, and now I was watching it burn in front of me. At one point, a young fan walked up to me. She was trembling, holding her phone like it was a shield. Her eyes were red. "Is it true?" she asked. "You're really getting married?" I nodded slowly. Her lips quivered, and then she whispered, "I thought you loved us." That line cut deeper than anything else I read online. I wanted to tell her that I still did, that love isn't something that disappears because it changes shape. But before I could speak, she turned and left. I watched her go, and it felt like watching years of connection fade in a single heartbeat. After she left, I couldn't eat. The coffee grew cold, untouched. My friend didn't say much, he didn't have to. The silence said enough. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an artist or even a celebrity. I felt like a person standing in the middle of a storm that no one else could see clearly. When I got home that night, I sat on the floor of my living room, scrolling again. Thousands of comments, videos, reactions, people analyzing my every word, every gesture. Some defended me, others attacked, and a few just said, they were disappointed. That word disappointed, it echoed in my mind because disappointment only comes from love, and that made it hurt even more. I turned off my phone and looked around my empty house. The air felt heavy, the kind that presses against your chest until you can't breathe right. I remembered when this place was filled with laughter, music, friends dropping by after long nights at the studio. Now it was just me and the echo of my own heartbeat. I thought about love, what it means when the whole world believes they share a piece of it with you. Being loved by millions is beautiful, but it's also dangerous. Because sometimes people start to think your happiness belongs to them. And when you make a choice they don't agree with, they feel betrayed as if you stole something that was theirs. That's when I realized something. Love, real love, isn't ownership, it's freedom. And if you have to destroy yourself to keep someone happy, that's not love, that's fear. The days after the announcement felt endless. I stopped checking social media, I stopped going out. Even the people closest to me didn't know what to say. But there was one person, someone who stayed silent through it all, yet somehow made me feel understood. She didn't post, didn't reply to the hate, didn't hide either. She simply sent me one message. Let's face this together. Those words kept me breathing. In the middle of all that noise, she became my quiet place. And for the first time since the world turned against me, I didn't feel completely alone. But I didn't know what was coming next, the confrontation that would change everything, and the moment I would finally understand what it really means to love in the light of the world's judgment. The morning after that long sleepless night, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating nonstop, calls from management, texts from members, and notifications from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to know how I was doing, but I didn't have an answer. How do you explain a kind of pain that isn't physical, the kind that lives quietly under your skin, waiting for the next wave to crash? I poured myself a cup of coffee and looked out the window. Seoul was alive. As always, cars rushing, people laughing, the sky already bright. But inside, everything felt muted, like I was watching life from behind glass. I tried to tell myself it would calm down soon. News moves fast, people forget. But when it comes to love and idols, people don't forget easily. They hold on to their emotions like proof of something real. That afternoon, I had to attend a small meeting at the company. The room felt colder than usual. My team looked exhausted, dark circles under their eyes, nervous hands fidgeting with phones. One of the executives sighed and said, "We didn't expect this kind of backlash." I stayed silent. There was nothing to say. I wasn't going to apologize for loving someone, and I wasn't going to let anyone else take the blame. Then, one of the younger staff members looked up and asked quietly, "Taehyung Si, do you want us to deny it? We can still say it's not official." I shook my head. "No," I said firmly. "I already told the truth. I'm not hiding it again." The room fell into silence. For a moment, it felt like everyone was holding their breath. Honesty isn't easy when honesty costs you the world, but I meant every word. I had spent years performing, pretending, smiling for cameras, even when I was breaking inside. This time, I wanted to live as a person, not a headline. After the meeting, I stepped outside through a back door, hoping to avoid the crowd. But the moment I walked out, I could hear them. Dozens of voices, shouting, calling, some crying. Security tried to guide me toward the car, but someone broke through the line. A young man holding a sign that said, "You lied to us." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Why now, Taehyung? Why did you have to ruin it like this?" I didn't know what to say. My heart ached for him, for all of them, because behind the anger I could feel love, twisted, confused, but real. I whispered, "I didn't ruin anything. I'm still me." But he shook his head, dropped the sign, and walked away. Cameras flashed everywhere. That moment, frozen in 1,000 photos, became another headline before I even got into the car. Inside the car, I stared out the window, watching the city blur past. I could hear my driver talking softly to security on the radio, but it all faded into background noise. What I kept hearing instead were the voices. "You betrayed us. You changed. We trusted you." That word again, trust, it haunted me. People trusted me to be someone who would never grow up, never fall in love, never live for himself. They trusted the version of me that smiled on stage and belonged to everyone. But I wasn't that version anymore. I had changed because people change. Love changes them. Later that night, I called Namjoon. He's always been the kind of person who understands the weight of silence. "How are you holding up?" he asked. I paused, then said quietly, "I didn't think love would feel like this." He sighed on the other end. "Love always costs something, Tai, but the price doesn't mean it's wrong." We talked for almost an hour about fame, expectations, and what it means to be human in front of millions. He reminded me that every story worth living has conflict, and that truth isn't always loved, but it's always worth telling. After hanging up, I went out to the rooftop. The city lights spread beneath me like constellations. I took a deep breath and looked up at the sky, wondering if she was doing the same somewhere out there. Despite everything, I missed her. We hadn't spoken much since the announcement, not because we were avoiding each other, but because we both needed space to breathe. The next day, she called. Her voice was calm, gentle. "Are you okay?" she asked. I wanted to say yes, but the truth slipped out before I could stop it. "No, but I will be." She didn't say much after that, just listen. Sometimes silence feels more healing than any words could. She told me she'd seen the comments, the headlines, the endless debates. "They'll calm down," she said. "They just need time." I smiled faintly. "Time," I repeated. "That's all I've ever given to the world. Maybe now it's time to give it to myself." When we hung up, I felt lighter. For the first time in days, I played music again. Soft, slow jazz filled the apartment, echoing through the walls. It reminded me why I fell in love in the first place, not because of fame or perfection, but because love makes life real. That night, I wrote in my journal. I wrote about fear, about courage, about the strange loneliness that fame hides beneath applause. I wrote about her, how she makes the world quieter when everything gets too loud. And I wrote the line that still stays with me. If loving her means losing the world, then maybe the world was never really mine. When I finished, I looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. The city outside had gone silent. I stood by the window, watching the faint glow of dawn starting to rise. I realized that the storm might not be over yet, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. Because storms don't destroy everything, sometimes they just wash away what was never meant to stay. And soon, I would learn that the real test wasn't surviving the backlash, it was learning how to live honestly when the whole world is watching. The following week felt like living in a loop each day, the same but heavier than the last. Every morning I woke up to new headlines, new accusations, new opinions from people who had never met me but believed they knew my heart better than I did. Some said the marriage was fake, others claimed it was a publicity stunt. A few even tried to find the woman's identity, dissecting every photo, every moment of my past. Privacy, something I used to protect like air, was now completely gone. I stopped reading the comments, but somehow they always found their way back to me through whispers, through messages, through the quiet sorrow in my team's faces. I could tell they were tired too, not just from the pressure, but from watching me fade behind a mask of calm that was starting to crack. One night, I decided to take a walk. I put on a hoodie, pulled the hood low, and slipped through the back door of my building. The city at night has always been my escape. The noise, the lights, the anonymity, but even then, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Fame doesn't switch off just because you're wearing a disguise. It lingers like a shadow. I walked aimlessly until I reached the Han River. The air was cold, the water reflecting the scattered glow of streetlights. I leaned against the railing, listening to the faint hum of cars crossing the bridge. For a while, I let myself breathe. No cameras, no questions, just silence. But silence has a way of magnifying the thoughts you try to hide. I thought about her, how she must be feeling being dragged into this storm she never asked for. I remembered the way she laughed when things got messy, how she always found light in the darkest corners. I wondered if she still believed in us. I wondered if I still did. Then, out of nowhere, a voice behind me said softly, "You shouldn't be here, alone." I turned around. It was Jimin. He smiled, but it wasn't his usual bright one. It was small, careful. "You know," he said, "when you first told us you were getting married, I thought maybe the world would finally let you be happy." I laughed bitterly. "Looks like the world had other plans." He shrugged, leaning beside me. "People love what you represent, Tai. Sometimes they forget you're human." We stood there in silence for a while, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. He eventually said, "Don't let them rewrite your story. You chose love, that's something worth standing for." Then he clapped me on the shoulder and before walking away added, "But don't lose yourself trying to prove it." After he left, I stayed a little longer. His words replayed in my mind. Don't lose yourself. I realized that was exactly what I had been doing, trying to balance between the man the world wanted me to be and the man I actually was. When I got home, I turned on the lights and looked at my reflection in the mirror. The person staring back didn't look like me. The smile I'd practiced for years had vanished. All that was left was exhaustion and a strange kind of clarity. I picked up my guitar. It had been weeks since I touched it. My fingers stumbled at first, but then, slowly, the melody found me. I started humming low, quiet, almost like a whisper. Then the words came unplanned. Even if the world forgets my name, I'll remember who I am. That night, I wrote an entire song. Not for the fans, not for the charts for myself. Every lyric carried the weight of the last few weeks, the betrayal, the fear, the heartbreak, but also the hope that refused to die. By dawn, I had finished. I didn't know if I'd ever release it, but it didn't matter. Writing it was enough. The next morning, I decided to do something everyone told me not to go live. My team panicked when they found out. Tae, don't. The comments will be brutal. It'll make things worse. But I wasn't trying to fix anything. I just wanted to speak honestly without scripts or filters. When I went live, my hands were shaking. Thousands joined within seconds. The chat flooded faster than I could read. I took a deep breath and started, "Hi, it's Taehyung." My voice sounded small at first. I know there's been a lot said about me lately. I just wanted to talk. For the next 20 minutes, I told them everything. How I fell in love, how scared I was to share it, how I thought people would understand. I didn't blame anyone. I didn't ask for sympathy. I just wanted them to know that behind every stage light, there's a real person with real feelings. At one point, I said, I know some of you feel hurt, but love isn't betrayal, it's just human. The chat slowed down for a moment, a rare moment of stillness. Then messages began to shift. We understand. We'll always support you. Be happy, Tai. Of course, not everyone felt that way. There were still harsh words, still disappointment. But for the first time, it didn't scare me. After the live ended, I sat there for a long time, staring at the blank screen. My heart was pounding, but it felt lighter. I knew it wouldn't fix everything, but it was a start, a reclaiming of my own voice. That night, she called again. I could hear relief in her tone. You did well, she said softly. You spoke from your heart. I smiled, tired but peaceful. I just told the truth. We stayed on the phone for hours, not talking much, just existing together in silence, breathing in sync. For the first time since the announcement, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Not because everything was fine, but because I had stopped pretending it was. I realized then that love isn't about protecting yourself from pain. It's about choosing what's worth hurting for. And despite everything, I knew I'd choose her again, every single time. But the world wasn't done testing that love yet. What happened next would prove whether the bond we built could survive the weight of fame or if the world would finally break what we had fought so hard to protect. The peace that followed that night didn't last long. For a few days, things seemed calmer. The storm had quieted, at least on the surface. Fans were divided, but there was hope. People started saying things like, maybe we should let him be happy, and he deserves love too. I thought maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. But the internet doesn't forgive easily. It only waits for something new to burn. A few days later, a video appeared online, a clip taken out of context from an old interview. Someone edited my words to make it sound like I was mocking my fans for being too obsessed. The timing was cruel, deliberate. Within hours, hashtags exploded again. Number Taehyung exposed. Number he doesn't respect us. Number cancel Taehyung. I woke up to chaos. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My manager's voice on the other line was tense. Don't look online. Just don't. But of course I did. I saw everything, the trending posts, the hateful comments, the accounts that used to post about love and support now calling me a liar. Even people I thought were friends stayed silent. Some of them unfollowed me publicly, like distancing themselves from a fire before it spread. That day, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: betrayal. Not from the strangers behind the screens, but from the ones who knew me, who could have defended me, but chose not to. I shut myself in my apartment for 2 days. The curtains stayed closed. My phone stayed off. The quiet was suffocating. Every sound from the outside world felt like an intrusion. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep either. I just sat there, replaying everything in my head, wondering when being honest about love became such a crime. On the third day, my mother came to see me. I didn't expect her. When she entered, she didn't say anything. She just looked at me, really looked. Then she walked over, sat beside me, and said quietly, "You always wanted people to see your heart, not your fame. But maybe it's time to protect that heart too." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For a long moment, I just stared at the floor, then whispered. I thought if I told the truth, people would understand. She smiled sadly. "The truth doesn't always comfort people, son. Sometimes it scares them." That night, I turned my phone back on. I had hundreds of unread messages from the label, from friends, from my team. But one stood out. It was from her. "I saw what's happening. Don't let them change who you are. You're still the same man I fell in love with." Reading those words broke something in me, but not in a bad way. It was like a wall inside finally cracked and light started seeping through. The next morning, I made a decision. I called my team and told them I wanted to release the song I had written that night by the river, the one no one had heard yet. They hesitated, said it was too risky. "People might think you're using the scandal to promote music," one of them warned. I replied simply, "Then they don't know what the song is about." I named it Remember Who You Are. When it dropped, I didn't do interviews. No teasers, no promotions, just the song. The lyrics were raw, no metaphors, no hidden meaning. It was me, stripped down to the core. I sang about losing myself, about finding light in chaos, about remembering love even when the world forgets you. Within hours, it went viral. But not because of the controversy, because of the truth in it. People who had turned away started to listen again. They said things like, "This is the Taehyung we missed. This is real. This is his soul." For the first time since everything began, I saw hope return to the eyes of those around me. My manager smiled again. My team stopped whispering in hallways. Even my label, cautious as ever, admitted, "Maybe you knew what you were doing." But deep down, I didn't do it for redemption. I did it because music has always been my way of surviving. I don't fight with words or arguments. I speak through melody, and sometimes the truth sounds softer when it's sung. A week later, I went out in public for the first time since the chaos began. The air felt different. People still stared, but not all stares were harsh. Some smiled, some waved. One girl, maybe 16, approached me shyly and said, "Your song helped me. Thank you for not giving up." That moment, that simple thank you, meant more than any award, any chart, any headline. Because it reminded me that no matter how loud the noise gets, there will always be someone listening quietly, understanding deeply. But just as I started to feel like I could breathe again, something unexpected happened, something that would change everything. Late one night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It said, "You don't know me, but I think you should see this. It's about her." Attached was a photo. My hands trembled as I opened it, and what I saw made my heart stop cold. The image showed her standing with someone I recognized, someone from my own circle, someone I thought I could trust. And in that moment, I realized the story wasn't over, it was only just beginning. When I saw that photo, time froze. My breath caught halfway in my throat, and for a long moment, I couldn't even blink. It felt like my body forgot how to move. The picture showed her the woman I was preparing to spend my life with, standing beside one of my closest friends. Their faces were partially hidden, but I knew them too well to mistake it. The streetlight above them cast a glow that felt cruelly intimate, almost cinematic, as if the universe wanted to make sure I saw everything clearly. My first instinct wasn't anger, it was disbelief. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever, convincing myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was old, maybe it was edited, maybe anything but what it looked like. I wanted to believe that. I needed to, but deep down, a voice whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. I didn't call her immediately. I just sat there, motionless, as thoughts spiraled through my mind the nights we spent talking until dawn, the promises, the quiet moments when she held my hand and said, "You can trust me." I thought about how she had been my anchor through all the hate, all the chaos, how she was the reason I was still standing. And now, this. When I finally gathered enough strength, I called her. She didn't pick up the first time or the second. On the third try, she answered. Her voice sounded normal, like nothing had happened. "Hey," she said softly. "Are you okay?" I didn't know how to answer that. My throat was tight. "Where are you?" I asked. She hesitated for a split second. It was subtle but silence. When you love someone, speaks louder than words. "I'm home," she said finally. I closed my eyes. "No," I whispered, "you're not." The line went silent, and in that silence, everything changed. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat by the window, watching the city lights blur into one another, trying to make sense of everything. I thought about how ironic it was I'd been attacked by strangers for being honest about love, yet betrayed by someone I trusted the most. Morning came slowly. My phone buzzed again this time. It was my friend, the same person in the photo. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity and pain are dangerous together. When I picked up, his first words were, "It's not what you think." I almost laughed, but it came out bitter. "Then what is it?" He sighed. "We met to talk about you. She's been worried about you, Ty. She asked for advice. Someone must have taken that photo and twisted it." His tone was calm, almost rehearsed. Maybe he was telling the truth, or maybe he'd already practiced that line 100 times before calling. I didn't know. I wanted to believe him, but my heart was too bruised to trust easily anymore. When I met her later that day, her eyes were swollen. She looked scared, not because she was caught, but because she could see how broken I was. You think I would betray you? She asked, voice trembling. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. The silence between us was heavy, full of all the things we used to understand without words. I don't know what to think anymore, I finally said. Everything's been falling apart since the day we went public. Maybe this is just what happens when love becomes a headline. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. It wasn't anger, it was exhaustion. I was tired of defending myself, tired of explaining, tired of pretending that fame didn't come with invisible chains. We didn't argue, we didn't cry, we just stood there, realizing that something beautiful had quietly broken beyond repair. That night, I went back to the river, the same place where I'd written my song. The air was cold, the wind sharp against my skin. I sat there for hours watching the water move, thinking about how everything in life eventually flows away no matter how tightly you try to hold it. People think betrayal is loud, full of shouting, tears, or accusations, but sometimes it's silent. It's in the things left unsaid, the doubts you try to ignore, the trust that slips away one unanswered question at a time. Over the next few days, I kept working. I filmed, recorded, smiled when I needed to. But behind the cameras, I was numb. I avoided interviews about my personal life. I told my label I didn't want to make any more statements. Let the noise fade on its own, I said, and it did slowly. The news cycle moved on. People found something else to talk about, and the chaos began to quiet. But inside me, there was a different kind of silence, the kind that lingers long after the storm ends. Then one day, as I was heading to the studio, I passed a group of fans waiting outside. One of them held up a sign that read, "We still believe in you, Taehyung." She smiled when our eyes met, not the kind of smile that comes from excitement, but the kind that says, "We understand." For the first time in weeks, I smiled back. It wasn't forced, it was small, fragile, but real. That's when I realized something important. You can lose love, you can lose trust, you can even lose parts of yourself along the way. But if you stay true to your heart, you'll never lose your reason. And that reason, that quiet strength, is what kept me moving forward. But the story wasn't done yet, because soon an unexpected call from my agency would change everything again. A call that would force me to face the one thing I'd been avoiding, the truth about why everything had fallen apart in the first place. Before I end this story, I want to take a moment to speak from my heart, not as an artist, not as someone constantly under the spotlight, but as a person who has walked through the noise, the pain, and the endless search for truth. To everyone who stayed, even when it was easier to walk away, thank you. You have no idea how much your quiet strength meant to me. Every message, every kind word, every moment you chose to believe in me when the world chose not to, became the light that guided me through my darkest nights. There were times I wanted to disappear completely. Times when I doubted everything, my choices, my music, even my worth. But then I'd see your comments, your letters, your smiles from the crowd. You reminded me that love, the real kind, doesn't fade when things get hard. It grows. It forgives. It heals. I've learned that life isn't about being perfect, it's about being honest. And honesty can be painful, especially when your truth doesn't fit what people expect from you. But if there is one thing I want you to remember from this story, it's this. Never apologize for being human. Never hide your heart just to keep others comfortable. The path I walked wasn't easy, but it made me who I am today. I learned how to love again, not with fear, but with courage. And for that, I'll always be grateful. To those who misunderstood me, I hold no anger. To those who forgave me, I owe you my sincerity. And to those who never left, you are the reason I can still smile today. Every song I sing, every step I take forward carries a piece of you, the ones who believed that behind the headlines, behind the chaos, there was still a heart that simply wanted to love and be loved. So, thank you truly for walking this road with me. Even when the lights fade and the noise dies down, know that your presence, your faith, and your love will always be the quiet melody that keeps me going. From the bottom of my heart, this isn't goodbye. It's just another beginning.